Hey everybody, this is Perch. One of the questions I got, and I think some news site may have also covered this because the question referenced this news site. I think they said CBR, but anyway, it is basically, why does Marvel Comics kill off or radically change characters before movie debuts? The idea being, where you have a Spider-Man movie coming out, they're either killing off or removing or temporarily sidelining Peter Parker. Scarlet Witch obviously has a kind of her WandaVision that's already passed, but she will appear in the Doctor Strange film, and they just killed her off. Doctor Strange, which you just mentioned, is killed off. In the past, they've done things with the Guardians of the Galaxy, where they kind of dramatically changed the team right around the time that the movie's out. Same thing with members of the Avengers or so on. There's a lot of it seems like the comic books are out of sync with the movies. So why is that? Well, I think there's a lot of reasons to it. And I can't give you a one factual, like there's not a, this is red, this is blue kind of answer. But the reason that people give often is kind of a two-part question. And keep in mind, I don't agree with this as logic, but this is what I'm told. So just kind of keep that in mind. Some of the things I report on and comment on are not things I agree with, but that's what the answer is. The answer doesn't necessarily mean we like it. So the answer common is nobody believes comic book deaths are permanent. I think there's some truth to that. That because we've seen so many characters die and come back to life and get changed and everything else, everybody expects nothing to last forever. That, in my opinion, by the way, before we get to the rest, that doesn't mean you still shouldn't try and give that impression to readers. You should try and give the readers the impression that what's happening is going to stick, that it matters. You don't want to fully give the impression that in 2 months it's all going to get erased. Now, I think comic books are giving that impression to a large extent. I think there's definitely a feeling of lack of permanence going on with this stuff. But that's the premise, is that comic book readers don't expect it to stick anyway. So the goal in the comic book, when the movie is coming out, is to get as much attention as possible, as much buzz, as much notice as it can get. And in comic books, the historical way of thinking since the 80s is that death is what does it. And I think it was a death of Superman that really kind of hammered home to everyone, or at least gave everybody the impression that if we kill off the character, that's going to get people talking. It's going to get people noticing. Even if we bring the character back to life 6 months later, death is what is going to bring people's attention to the table. Now, I think those two statements, personally, are a bit in conflict with each other. If we believe that nobody takes death seriously, then why do we believe that death as a marketing tool is going to be effective? I think that logic breaks down, doesn't make any sense to me. But that is how people think. And that is how comics thinks. So when we get to these comics that are tying in, or not, they're connected to a movie like Doctor Strange, they're doing this Death of Doctor Strange book. It's a marketing attempt. It's a branding attempt to say, hey, here's something major we're doing for, that is in the movie. And it's the one major card we have in our sleeve, basically death. And they're banking on the idea that the customers, the people who will pick this up, know that Doctor Strange will return to life, and probably that they'll even think that Doctor Strange will be back in time for the movie. And so it's the question that they're expecting that customers will have is, how are they going to get out of this one? How are they going to undo this death? What's this journey going to be like? It is pretending that major things are happening in order for you to watch the show. It's a bit like a magic trick. It's a bit like TV shows where the world would blow up, or it would be Armageddon, and how in the world is MacGyver going to get out of this, or whatever it happens to be? How are we going to put things back in the box at the end? I think that's a kind of an old and tired entertainment trope and technique, but comics certainly still use it. And they seem almost trapped into that mentality. So that's basically it. And again, this is one of those cases where I think comic books are stuck in this thought process of maybe the 80s, or maybe Um, they're stuck in this mode that doesn't necessarily, or not necessarily, doesn't play out. This isn't how customer behavior actually is. It's a little bit of it's kind of like the number one issues that come out, and they do 30 variant covers, and so the number one issue sells well, and so the comic publisher, the people who are, the editors level, are saying, well, we should relaunch the comic book more because it spikes the sales, it boosts things up, and it does. It's true, but it's kind of the wrong. It's a wrong result from. It's a wrong result from the outcome. It's seeing an outcome, in which case higher sales, and same thing with death. It's saying, okay, death is bringing higher sales, therefore, if there's a big movie coming out or some way to tie into it, let's kill off the main character. And that will provide for lack of a better word, a cheap marketing stunt that will push the comic over. And we want the comic to do better, so this is the best way to do it. Again, my impression is this is a bit of, it's an incorrect result. It's an incorrect line of thinking. And I think it's cynical in the sense that I think it assumes one core thing that maybe sums up some of what's wrong with the big two comics today, and that's stable, long, good storylines are not marketable. That just having a good run on a comic, just having a good 50 issues of a solid, engaging, in-depth story is not enough. And I think you see, if anything, maybe you point to somebody like Donny Cates, who did a long run on Venom, and certainly there was a payoff with King in Black and some of the events he did. But his run on Venom sold well. It did good in trades. I mean, I think you could say to some extent Al Ewing was the same. It didn't have the same numbers that Donny Cates did, but still, it was higher than normal. And I think you could look at both of those and say, all right, so, Al Ewing puts in 50 issues. Donny Cates puts in, I'm not sure, but a good, healthy amount of issues, several years in his run. And he got sales through that entire time period. And it didn't have to be a 5-part, Death of Doctor Strange type miniseries. It was just a good story that carried the day. And that's where I think comics are at and need to be at, is putting more priority on just long, stable, consistent, good runs that, that are probably harder to market. And I get it. It's harder to try and explain to an audience, to a customer base, why Al Ewing's run is great, as opposed to just being able to say the Incredible Hulk dies in this issue. What will happen? I mean, it's easier, it's lazier, but it's much more straightforward. Unfortunately, I think it does a poor job of actually building value over time, and I think increasingly that's what you got. So anyway, to answer your question, why do the comic book companies, the premise that some people have thrown out there is, are the comic book companies trying to sabotage the movies in some way? Is this that, Marvel secretly hates Disney in the movies, so this is their way of kind of screwing them? No, they honestly think they're doing the right thing by tying into these movies. They think they are creating synergy by radically changing the character. I would say that's it's short-term thinking. It's not good thinking. And the end result is, what you see. I think increasing disinterest in the comic side, where most people now take the definitive version of these characters as the MCU version. That's the true version. And the comic books are kind of the knockoffs, which is, that hurts me inside to say that out loud. But anyway, that's my belief. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below what your theory is. Like and subscribe, as always, and thanks for listening.